systems used in our department and the university, and I will also provide a short introduction on Tucan. The whole idea is that you have to get used to the systems anyways on your own. You can, at least in the Moodle systems, personalize them a bit anyways. So we'll just show the most important parts, specifically how to register correctly in Tucan, because that's really pain in the ass. But let's start with the easier part, the Moodle systems used. What's a Moodle system? Well, essentially it's just a system to organize the courses held at a university, for example, or something else. Why do we have two Moodle systems in usage? Because we're the Department of Computer Science, and my colleague responsible for the advisory service in the bachelor's is also researching in the area of education in computer science, and he's responsible for the computer science Moodle I will show later on, and he developed a lot of plugins and several things. So our system is way more mighty than the central one. There's just one drawback: there is no automatic combination or connection between Tucan and our Moodle system. If you encounter the word Moodle, I think in the online section of the course descriptions, then there's an automatic transfer from Tucan to the central HRZ Moodle. HRZ is the facility, the central facility for the IT infrastructure of the university. In that case, you have to register to the small groups, to the exercises, in order to get into the Moodle course. In that case, you can't register on your own for the course in the Moodle system, in the central one. Essentially, you have to log in with your TUID to any of the systems. Totally secure. This is my TUID. And I'm a bit happy that you can't read my password. Coffee. Dankeschön. Life-saving. All right. Massive speed. I'm not really sure what's happening here. Anyways, perfect Moodle system. As you can see easily, you will see a bit of the Athene, the logo of the TU Darmstadt, on the left upper corner. Our students tend to call the central Moodle the not so good Moodle system. Anyways, so what you can usually, or what you should be able to do, oh perfect. It's working out in the best way possible. Reload. Have you tried shutting it off and turning it on again? Yo! Nothing is working out here. Let me just... Let's check this. So probably don't open it from the back-end server of Tucan. All right, so usually you're starting at a dashboard page, an overview of your last visited courses, some information whatsoever. In all of the Moodle systems you have some section like a course catalog or an overview of the semesters, usually sorted by electives or mandatory courses or whatsoever. In this scenario here with the central Moodle system, you of course have Moodle courses also from the other departments. Therefore it's just ordered by the semester first of all. And if you steer into the semester, you would see all the offers from the different departments. So if you're interested, for example, gathering material from any other course, have a look whether you can roll into one of the courses here and gather the material. Right, short descriptions. so perfect. All the tags are still given. That's most likely due to the situation that lecturers tend to use HTML tags in their course descriptions, and Tucan is not able to cope with that. So therefore, if you export it or use it or whatsoever, you just have the HTML tag as text, actually. Always pain in the ass if you create new course description handbooks, Modulhandbücher, because we have to do that by hand in Word. The last time we completely developed new ones, it took me 40 complete hours to update the Modulhandbücher, the course description handbooks. I'm a bit overpaid for this type of work. Anyways, so you can just enroll into one of the courses if there is no credential required. If a credential is required to log in, you will get the same usually in the first week of lectures. If you miss the same, ask your fellow students or whomsoever you can get hold of. As I said, if there's Moodle stated in the course description in Tucan, you have to register in Tucan. At some point, you will be automatically transferred. They are doing that in batches, actually, somewhat. And at some point, you have to trigger the process because then they're not really doing the regular procedure anymore. You can personalize it whatsoever, but that's essentially just what you can actually do. Inside of the courses, you will find more information. First of all, the contact information for the lecturers and organizing academic staff. That's really important if you have any questions regarding the organization, exceptions, whatsoever. You will get a lot of information via this course, as well as usually the slides, video recordings. There are usually some possibilities to ask questions, forums. So therefore, it's highly interactive, specifically if you use it in the way. That's your first point of entry if you have questions regarding a course, either to fellow students or the organizational staff. So, and now, our Moodle system. A lot of information as well. Really important, if you go for the login, go for the login with the TU ID, a little below. Otherwise, you will probably create a new account, and then it differs over time. It is possible to generate in our Moodle system preliminary TU IDs, faked ones. If you got one from Guido, you have to get in touch at some point in order to bind the different accounts together at the end. Merge them, if applicable. All right, essentially the same. So a landing page, dashboard, everything same, not much difference. What you can do probably, for us, way more possibilities to create a course. For example, there are plugins for automatic for an automatic organization of small exercise groups where you can actually state as a student, these are my 3 preferred appointments, I don't want to join this one because I'm not able to attend and whatever, and that's something Tucan can't. And the central HR set Moodle also. It's not possible to do the same. All right, any questions on the Moodle system so far? Because everything else has to be really done on an individual base. You have to log in, you have to get around with the system, you have to check for your courses, and in each individual course, you will find a different layout, different information, at least slightly. So just my recommendation, log into the systems, play around a bit, register for courses, deregister, just do some random stuff till you're used to the system in the best way possible. Tucan is the leading tool. So it doesn't matter if you're registered in Moodle, for example. No requirement stemming out of that, no whatsoever. So you can just log into one of the Moodle courses, for example, also to gather material if you probably want to take the course a year later or something. You can also enroll in old courses if possible to gather material for exam preparation as well. So it's really helpful and useful, but not the leading tool. So you always have to make sure that you're registered in Tucan correctly as well, or probably first of all. Yes. Pardon once again. Okay, the question is whether one can see which courses in which Moodle system. No, not at all. That's solely the decision of the lecturers in each offering term. So usually they tend to, if it was in our Moodle system earlier, it will again be in our Moodle system, because it's way easy to just copy courses into a new semester rather than creating them from scratch on. In our department, I'd say it's roughly 50-50. Well, in other departments, there's only one option. Yeah, just have a look in the computer science Moodle. If the course doesn't exist there, it's either most likely at the HRZ Moodle, or the lecturers are not using a Moodle system at all. Then you will probably find the lectures, videos, and whatsoever on their websites, some other tool. But I'm not really sure whether we are still using other tools. There were Clicks was there for some years in the electrical engineering department. Probably some other tools as well. But most likely, like 99.99% of all the computer science courses can be found in one of the Moodle systems. Roughly. Let's switch back to the back end of Tucan now. Any questions on the Moodle systems? Has any of you used the Moodle system before, actually? Okay, ask all the people who raised their hands now, all the others, if you have questions. Perfect. Bringing together our students. All right. So, Tucan. You will all most likely have seen something like that already, because you had to apply, for example. A lot of interesting information as well as you log in. Let me just show you how to use Tucan specifically for the registration. Let's start with that one. So, after you log in with your TU ID, that's a test system I can manipulate, so therefore I just used Right Student. That's also the reason why I can't show you one page in Tucan, because I can't overwrite this student email address, and it's first name, last name. So in order to not let you know which account I used, I'm unfortunately not able to show you one specific section. Anyways, so you will find a lot of incoming messages here over time. Specifically, we have been told by the central facilities to not spread too many messages. We're trying to follow this recommendation, let's say, from our point of view. But still, you will get a lot of information, specifically within the exam registration period, for your courses, whatsoever. Make sure to use the systems in the best way possible. I think was there already an introduction, or is there an introduction, forwarding emails, whatsoever? Okay. Okay. There's one drawback if you forward your emails. At some point you might have to use your identical email address actually again, locally. Therefore they're discussing whether it's possible in the future anyways to forward the emails. But then you have to set back almost everything in order to use it in the right way, as like in the beginning. So it might be the case that at some point they will stop the possibility to forward your email addresses. Additionally, due to the situation that we are banned, so quite often, Gmail, for example, but also GMX and whatsoever, if they receive way too many emails that look exactly the same, their spam filters are activated, and then the whole TU Darmstadt is blacklisted, and then we have to get unblocked again. And if we force you to not use external email addresses, this problem is solved for us. And then you have to use the identical email address anyways. Okay, so don't forward your email address. Perfect. All right, after logging in, what to do? Well, first of all, you can use the section of service to just check all your data, for example, and your documents. The personal data is the section I'm not able to show you right now, but you will just see an overview of what is actually happening, so your name, your email address, whatsoever. A bit more interesting, your documents. So the certification that you're enrolled, certification if you got BAföG, for example, scholarship, something, but also about your applications and whatsoever. That was actually the CEO of the DFKAI, the German Research Institute on AI. And a former hat Benjamin immer noch irgendwie ein paar Stunden bei uns? Ja, ist egal. All right. Then also quite interesting, if you want to change something, or if you want to get into the RMU study program, which is a possibility in which you can enroll, if you're enrolled here, for example, and then you can take courses from Goethe University in Frankfurt and the Gutenberg University in Mainz. And if they fit into our programs, you can get them transferred into our study programs, for example. That's a possibility to extend the course selection. Also, if you want to request a semester on leave, if you want to change your name, your nationality, or whatsoever, you will find information and the forms for the same here. Is it possible to change the language? Sure. If you change the language somewhat later, so after you steered into some area, exactly this is happening, you're starting from scratch on. So probably change the language before you search, for example, for course in the course schedule. Right, so service, as I said, forms, documents, your personal data to cross-check that. If you want to switch your study program or take up another program later on, you have to follow the application part. It's okay-ish to use. It takes ages to reload, for example, whatsoever. They're working on the same. Anyhow, there's one information I want to already provide, because I'm just working on the internal request for switching study programs still for the summer term. I need a PDF from this system at the end. And you don't get the information anywhere. And it's not easy to find how to get the PDF I need. You actually have to print the application. And then not the whole application is printed, but just a short form of 2 or 3 pages. That's a PDF where you can't sign or whatsoever. I just need this PDF via email. That's essentially it. But if I don't get the PDF, your application can't be completed. So if you want to switch study programs or take up another one later on, make sure to provide the PDF as well. All right, so the course catalog or the schedule, it's just the overview of what's provided in this semester, ordered by the different departments and whatsoever. More interesting is this area, because that's where you have to register for modules and courses, right? And I will now switch to another program, to the AIML program, because that's really interesting to see how you have to steer into the right area. Herzlich willkommen. So, switching back to English again. All right, so courses. First of all, in this study program it doesn't exist, but first of all, the first thing to do, steer into my elective subjects. Specifically if you're enrolled in the German taught Informatik program, computer science, in the English taught computer science program, or in any other program where you have to select areas, right, or specializations, or something like that. So not given in the IML master program, not in autonomous systems robotics, not in IT security. Master Informatik and computer science. Select your individual specialization and all the specialization you want to take in CS master. Otherwise, you won't find anything to register for modules or courses later on. So, registration. How's the registration done now? Okay, you see the structure of your study program. In this case, the Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning Master Program. You see that is the English version of the website. promised. So, electives and Studium Generale, master thesis, remedial coursework, Auflagen, additional courses and further courses. I have no idea, never ever had, nor will I ever have an idea what further courses are. It's always empty since years. No clue, not at all. Just ignore further courses. Additional courses, you will find all the course offers from all departments for any student at the university there. Those credits are not counted towards your degree, and we are essentially not allowed to transfer them back. And there's one issue here. If you search for a course in the course schedule and register via this, it will automatically be sorted into the additional course area, because that's the least hazardous one. Don't. Never ever. Steer into the right tree of your study program and register there if you want to get it counted towards your degree. First of all, it causes a lot of hands-on work for the examination office to prepare the same. Secondly, we're not forced to, so we could just leave you with the past courses in the additional course area, and then you have to get up more credits. Make sure to register in the correct way and cross-check that after registration, because it's really not easy to register at all, right? But if you want to take some extra courses, for example, that are not included in your program in preparation of a stay abroad or something, you could take language courses there that can't be included anymore in your Studium Generale area, for example. Remedial coursework, Auflagen. You will find a list. It's partly translated. It's perfect. You find a list of potential modules and courses here for the remedial coursework. If you see something popping up here and it's on your admission sheet as an imposed condition, you can register here as well. For anything that's in the first year of the bachelor's program, or where the module, and therefore the lecture itself, is not given in this semester, you have to get in touch with the examination office. Just send them an email and ask for the registration, right? That's essentially it. Right, then. Now, master thesis. You won't ever be able to register master thesis on your own here. But you can see the registered master thesis as soon as the examination office has registered you after receiving the registration form signed by your supervisor and whatsoever. It pops up in this area, right? So don't wonder, it's just a technical thing to happen, like the further courses probably, I don't know. So you can almost, besides the remedial coursework, forget about all the other areas. Electives in Studium Generale. This is essentially the structure of your study program. So here it's translated. Elective areas. Okay, no, really, elective areas. Okay, I want to go into the foundation. Yeah, no, really, I want to go into the foundations of AI. Okay, no, I mean, really, I want to go into this area. Yeah, come on. Perfect. Oh, cook. Look, some modules and courses are popping up. Okay, I want to register, let's say, for deep learning architectures methods. Oh, I am registered for deep learning architectures methods. Let's register for reinforcement learning then. I want to register for reinforcement learning. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. But are you really sure? Yeah, yes, sure, okay. Okay, cool, back to registration. Oh wait, I'm not done yet. I now need to register to the course, right? Are you sure? Yes, I'm really sure, really. Really? And now you registered for one course. And not even the exam for the same, right? You still have to register for the examinations in another registration period. And that's the reason why I told you yesterday to make sure to have the deadlines completely sorted, right? And to make sure to meet all the deadlines. Because it may actually be the case that some have individual registration deadlines if they have specific examination rules, for example. It's an exception, but it happens from time to time. So for each and every course and each and every department, make sure to look out for the registration procedures, registration deadlines, because it also differs between the departments, right? So a lot of clicking around, but at the end you can see whether you're correctly registered via the modules, for example. Reinforcement learning is now popping up, also with the courses, and at some point you can register for the exams. And you will find that here, here, and then it's not exam registration period, but then you can register for the exams here on this page. Totally easy to get around. And that's one of the reasons why I told you to play around with all the systems as often as you can at the beginning. Just register, deregister from exam specifically, for example, just to make sure that you actually manage the tool in the correct way. Because there's a golden rule in university law. There is a lot of things we can do if you approach us before something happened. After something happened, almost nothing we can do, right? So therefore, make sure that you're registered correctly in the right area, the right time. Any questions on our lovely management tool? No. The question is whether I'm automatically registered in Moodle as well? No. If you find a course with these short, just Moodle as a word in the online section of the description, then you will most likely find in the course registration also a small group, even if it's only one small group, right? And if you register in Tucan there, then you will be automatically transferred into the central Moodle system for the course, but only then. For each and any other case, you need to register in Moodle if they use Moodle on your own as well. Right, so it's always the combination, looking up websites, Moodle courses, and Tucan. That's probably most common and the most often combination. Right, any other question? There was another hand raised. Okay, language of instruction. Forget about the language of instruction. Forgetting about the language of instruction. Why? Because the lecturers can change the language of instruction in the respective course offering term on their own without letting us know. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So my recommendation, I mean, there are some courses where it's completely fine and correct, but others are not. Drop by in the first week of lectures or ask fellow students already that have already taken the course, is this course really in German? It might be the case that it's really German. It might be the case that it's partly German, but mainly English, and they still stay German as language of instruction. It might actually be the case that it's completely English already. It might be the case that it's German taught, but you have English material, English book recommendations, English consultation hours, and an English exam at the end. Right. In a lot of our courses, exams are translated anyways. If not, ask them. It's easy to translate an exam sheet, right? That's not the point. So in most of the German courses, it should be possible as well to have an English exam, English consultation hours, and English material for preparation, or at least recommendations for the same. Then it's a bit more about self-studying rather than attending the PowerPoint karaoke course, right? All right. So really, it's somewhat unstable. Drop by in the first week, ask your fellow students, send someone in a course you're not sure about, gather the information also about the organization whatsoever, and then select your courses over time. I usually recommend freshmen to select more courses in the first semester than they actually want to follow at the end, and then drop them. As soon as you gather enough information and you made your final decision, just drop one course after another till you reach your final combination in this semester. Because it might always change and we don't know. Seminars and labs are usually possible to be conducted completely in English or German as well, both languages, right? So ignore the language of instruction for seminars and labs completely. Just get in touch with the supervisor and ask, right? Okay. If it's all up to the examiners or the lecturers. So in a lot of cases, they will provide the exams in both languages anyways. Ask them. I mean, if you approach them early enough, there should be sufficient time. Should be possible. But of course, there's no right. So if it's a completely English-taught course, and they're not willing to provide a German translated exam, then you have to stick with the English one. That's probably the case if it's an international lecturer, for example, who's not really able to speak German in the best way and has only an international group. That might happen. A rare case, but it could happen. You should see the same via the performance record. Leistungsspiegel, right? Also Leistungsübersicht. And you should see all the mandatory courses of the bachelors in the first section for in the bachelor program. And if it's transferred, you will see it as passed on the right side. Doesn't matter. It's an overall overview of your performance. At least one. Then probably the responsible colleague has not forwarded the transfer of credit letter to the examination office. Or they were not able to add it into Tucan so far. It takes some time. I'm not sure. You should have gotten in touch with Guido for the same, right? Guido Rössling. Yeah, okay. It's Guido Rössling. He has his own advisory Moodle course in his own Moodle system, in our ones, department one. Ask him, get in touch, or drop by in one of his consultation hours and ask him. He's usually quite fast, submitting all the necessary documents, but of course Easter holidays, whatever, so it might have taken a bit. But just ask him. You should see it popping up here. If you can't see it, ask him or ask the examination office. Both are responsible for your transfer of credits. And yes, an admission is only possible in the summer term if you at least get one course transferred. And that's hurting the rule, violating the rules a lot, because usually it would have been 31 plus credits, right? But we want to help students, and therefore our decision for the second semester in summer term is at least one computer science course or related. Any other questions? Yeah, at our university, and it was the foundation of robotics, our module in the bachelor's. Have you conducted another bachelor? Fair enough. So if you don't request the transfer of this module into your master program, no issue. If you request the transfer, it's exactly the same module. If it's the same module, there's also the foundation of robotics for mechatronics. Yeah, but it's the same lecture, but a different module. So it really comes down to the module. So if you want to get it included and it's exactly the same module used in our master's programs, then you will have the failed attempt as well. But as long as you don't request to transfer it from the bachelor, you have probably not finished or have finished or whatsoever, then it's your decision, right? And then, of course, it doesn't touch any removal rule. Fair enough, right. Module. Yes. So in our department, it's we're following so-called or previously called mini module system. One module, one course, one achievement. Right? It may be different in other departments. One module, several courses, whatsoever. And it's mandatory to complete the module at some point, actually. In our case, it essentially means you have to pass the achievement at some point, right? And that's also the reason why we introduced the possibility to remove them before the last attempt, at least once per area, and under specific circumstances, probably a bit more, because you can always just decide on wrong base, for example, or something. But it's all coming down to one course then, essentially, in our department. So make sure, before you actually take an exam, that you really want to follow this furthermore, right? There's not really much of free shots or something. So therefore, really, specifically the exam, it doesn't matter if you just register to the module in the course. It really has to be a failed attempt with the achievement. And then you either have to request the removal or pass it. All right? Anything else here? Okay, there's a question if there are any guidelines for the registration in the first semester or limits. No and no. I mean, go for lectures and integrated lectures rather than seminars and labs in the first semester, because it's not easy to figure out the whole process with the kick-offs for seminars and labs and whatsoever. And it makes sense to first of all get to know the groups before you decide where you want to conduct, for example, hands-on work in the same group. So I usually recommend to take lectures and integrated lectures in the first semester. I usually recommend, as I stated earlier, to take a bit more credits at the beginning of the semester in order to sort out courses over time a bit. Don't take too many credits in the first semester if you have to get around with our system and the city and Germany and whatsoever, because that takes time as well. And you probably don't want to get stressed out a lot. So, and then of course, start with the more basic courses. So an introduction to AI probably makes sense before you take something like AI for, I don't know, space robotics on Mars. And you for this course, you should probably have some profound knowledge of space robotics, and for that, robotics. So therefore, there's a natural order given by the topics of the courses, but it depends on your pre-knowledge as well. So therefore, it's an individual decision you have to take. Flip through the course descriptions, wait till you have the first batch of slides, probably some information from fellow students before you finalize your course selection. That's the best recommendation I can give. Right, any other questions? What to do if you don't find a module? You first of all have to ask yourself, is this module actually existing in this semester? Because otherwise it makes sense to not find it. Then examination office. The examination office can check whether it was just forgotten for your study program, for example, or if there's an exception in the semester. Professor has a semester on leave, for example, then it won't be offered, probably. Something like that. It might be an error, so therefore ask. And the examination office is your first point of entry for such questions. All examination and Tucan related questions, probably first of all, the examination office or the advisory service, of course. You can always get in touch with us as well. Right. Not necessarily. Everything from the first year of the bachelor's is left out because you have to fulfill exercises and labs in order to be allowed to participate in the exam. But with the imposed conditions and remedial coursework, we force you to conduct the same or pass the same in 1 year and at topmost 2 attempts. Then we of course have to secure that you actually have the 2 attempts. Hidden modules existing without the requirement for taking the exam, right? You can't register on your own, so therefore for all modules of our first bachelor's year you have to ask the examination office, as well as for imposed conditions from the previous semester. Because the module is only offered then in this semester, and only if the module is offered you can register for the same. So therefore you have to register to the module of the previous semester, and then you can register for the course and the exam on your own again. And that both has to be done by the examination office. For in those cases, write an email to the examination office and ask for the registration. Not if it's not mandatory. It may change. That's one of the reasons why it's more generic, the statement. If a professor has a semester on leave, it might be the case that the whole schedule for his courses or her courses are changing the semester after returning. And what was held in the winter term before is now in the summer term. So it changes over time as well. New courses and so on and so forth. You have to look it up on your own. It is quite likely, of course, that if a course was offered in the winter term, that it will be offered again in the winter term if it's not some very specific elective course or something, right? But there still may be differences, and that's the reason why we state all the course descriptions in the course description handbook in a more generic way. And it's not easy to find out, to be honest. Ist ja sauspät. Nur eine halbe Stunde angesetzt. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, sure. You can deregister for modules in courses until the end of the offering term. As soon as the term is done, you can't deregister on your own. It will be cleaned up as soon as you graduate then. So just if you register for a module and you want to probably take the exam at some other point, right? Specifically in the semester after the course was held, stay registered to the module in the course. Definitely, because only then are you able to register for the exam, for the repeat exam in the following term, right? If you probably want to take it later on, you can deregister from the module in the course, because then you're able to register in the right semester again. Or stay registered, but then it's a bit pain in the ass to find the registration possibility for a later semester, right? You can deregister from exams till 8 days before the exam takes place on your own. So a lot of possibilities, and that's one other reason why you should really take care of all the deadlines, the systems, and the procedures, right? Because it might happen to deregister from the wrong course if you're not really, probably if you're too fast deregistering something or whatever, right? So make sure that you take it into account and be careful with the registration and deregistration. But yeah, a lot of possibilities, and no need to finalize it or take the exam or whatsoever just because you register to a modular course. So if you just want to gather information, for example, fair enough. Right. Yes. Differs. Okay, the question is, there are sometimes labs or projects or probably some exercises or whatsoever for bonus points for the exam. First of all, the bonus system works in a way that you have to pass the exam and only then you will get the bonus. So you can't pass including the bonus, right? So it's just an extra to improve your grade at the end. Secondly, it depends. So sometimes it's just part of the course on regular basis. Then you will all get via, for example, the Moodle course, the information, the tasks, and whatsoever, and you can just submit it via the course as well. Sometimes you have to register on your own for the bonus project, for example. Usually it's dealt via Moodle or in the lecture or whatsoever. You should see the information in the first week when they have the organizational slides of the lectures, right? Or the first one or 2 weeks. Most likely, or in most of the cases I know about, all students attending the course got the information directly, and just it's your decision then whether you want to submit or not. The question is, can I simply register 2 modules for all all modules existing? Yeah, you could. No, you can't. Not on your own, because you can only register all the courses now for the summer term, for example. It's not a good idea anyways, because it will overload the overview in Tucan a lot, and then it's getting even more painful. Don't take a bit more, but reduce the same if you decide to drop it. Make sure to really register only what you want to take, or probably what you want to take as an exam in the follow-up semester, right? Because otherwise it's really overcrowded at some point, really overcrowded. And yes, we had some students who tended to register for, I don't know, 50 to 60 modules each and every semester. I wouldn't be able to use this Tucan account anymore, to be honest, so probably don't. You can register a bit more, of course, if you're not 100% sure, for example, something like that. But try to keep it limited at some point, right? All right. Any other questions? Yes. Bologna-Lissabon, bachelor master system in Europe. Modules are containers with a connection to some specific topic. Might be more generic, broad topic, or some specific topic, or whatever, but it's a container. Usually a bit more generic. Like, for example, what was the idea? Let's say a module on AI. A module can contain one or an infinite amount of courses, which are all related to the generic topic of the module. In our department, we're using actually the system, one module, one course, one achievement. So it's actually almost identical in our case, right? But you will find more generic information, for example, also book recommendations, generic ones, at the module description. And the content and the details, also the details for the literature, in the course offering at the course, because that's changing over time with every offering semester then, right? So module contains the courses, and the exams, and that's also something that might happen, can be bound either towards the module, or on the module, or the course. And therefore you really have to register module and course in order to make sure that you can register the exam. The difference is a bit, for example, if you have a portfolio exam and you have a big container module with several courses, then it might be the case that you have to take 2 or 3 of the courses, and then you have one exam about all the topics of the 2 or 3 courses. Then the exam would be bound to the module. Sometimes you just have to pass a specific amount of courses in order to fulfill the criteria for the module. Then the exams or the achievements are bound to the courses, right? And that's essentially the range, what can happen. But in general, module contains course, and either at the module or the course you will find the examination bound to. Any other questions? History of bachelor master programs in Europe. Okay, first of all, then second. Not necessarily lectures. I think what you mean, one module, but more than one course, right? Then it's either, in most of the cases, it's not 2 lectures, it's a lecture and an exercise. Even if it's a lecture hall exercise, in that case, definitely register to the exercise as well, because that may actually lead to the automatic transfer to the central HR set Moodle, right? Sometimes they offer small groups as well, several exercise groups. Then you will find actually, if you register for the exercise section, then there pops up a new website where you see all the possibilities, all the dates for the exercises, for example, or the groups, and then you have to select one in order to proceed with the registration period. Sometimes there are actually 2 lectures as well. Those might be then modules from other departments where you have actually usually 2 or 3 courses. Department Law and Economics. Unicert. Yeah, okay. For Unicert, in order to take the exam or pass the module, you have to conduct a specific amount of the courses given inside. And what you can see now for the registration are only the 2 courses offered in this semester. Each of the modules for the Unicert usually includes 3, 4, 5 courses, actually over time. Get in touch with the language facility, because I'm not the expert what you really have to do for being allowed to participate in the Unicert exam or whatever. This should be explained by the explanation office of the language facility. But that's done. These are actually 2 different courses, right? Yes, forget about it. Okay, thanks for the hint. Registered for some random course, and then something like Spanish 5 or something popped up. That's a well-known Tucan error. I think it either doesn't. Yeah, right. So it's really just a display problem, actually. And actually, they tried to solve that last year already. Anyways. Yeah, cool. So you've taken Spanish 5. Actually, a course that doesn't exist in our university. Yeah, no, just ignore it. That's actually a well-known problem. Any other questions? Otherwise, we have just 1 minute left. I will probably start a bit later with the intercultural talk, so you can probably go to fetch some fresh air like me. All right, if there are no questions, thanks already for your attention. We will start probably 5 minutes later. See you soon. Es wird noch nicht aufgezeichnet, oder? Ah, dann sage ich mal nichts. All right. Calm down a bit, please. Thanks. It's interesting how silent a lecture hall gets if the lecturer is just in front doing nothing. That works out almost perfectly each and every time. Otherwise, probably lecturers just leaving the hall. All right, okay, oh, damn. There are boundaries now. I just have to stay in this area. I don't know why. All right, intercultural talk. What are we doing? Well, it's of course not a complete overview of all the intercultural differences. That's impossible. There's an idea. We do have a lot of international students in our department, specifically in the master's programs, but also in the bachelor's programs, stemming from a lot of different countries around the world. You have a lot of people with a history in foreign countries as well. So therefore, it's really interesting to probably get a glimpse idea that there are differences. What is culture in general? What are the differences? In order to get around in a better way. You can benefit a lot if you open yourself to different cultures and just have a look and see what you could probably use for yourself, and specifically, of course, in your working phase later on as well, because you will most likely work in an international context. So therefore, it really makes sense to have that present and to raise some awareness, at least, about intercultural differences. Additionally, you will find a lot of stereotypes, and that's the second part of the talk. Just a glimpse overview of stereotypes of Germans. And it's ended by a short quiz as well. Let's see whether we can reach the same. And let's start. So culture. What is culture? Well, culture is essentially almost everything. Civilization, code of conduct, manners, do's and don'ts, religion, history, language, environment, recognition, affinities to something, whatsoever. You have a civilization culture, you have a society culture, you have your own culture, you have your family culture, you have a lot of different culture levels as well. So it's a really big bunch and mixture of a lot of things. Additionally, only very small parts of culture can be directly seen, right? So, for example, music, ways of storytelling, anime, manga, for example, very specific type of storytelling. Dancing, Irish folk dance, for example, and so on. So a lot of different things that can be seen, that are visible from the outside. But there are way more things that are hidden and you can't directly see. You will just learn them by getting around with the people, for example, like gender roles, notions, values, attitudes, social interaction, humor is a very specific thing, right? And now do something completely different. Okay. And it's really hard to get all these hidden aspects, actually, if you don't really get yourself into the different culture. And still, they will influence your communication and your interaction with people from the different culture. And I therefore assume that you probably, all the international students have run already in some kind of culture shock. It might even be a slight one. So for all the international students, have you encountered something really strange in Germany already? Come Come on, don't be shy. Something. Garbage disposal, definitely, definitely something. But I can, from a personal point of view, I've been in Tokyo a few years ago. They have a 20-page description how to dispose garbage, and it works out completely fine. And I actually attended with the Judo Association, German Judo Association, the Judo World Championships, and I tried to convince my judo colleagues actually to attend the disposal site in Tokyo because it should have been really awesome. It's way more actually than we do in Germany, but they wanted to attend the next fight, so it was not possible, unfortunately. But yeah, Germany is quite on top with the garbage disposal, right? Anything else? Something really strange, some small things. Oh, yeah, that's interesting, right? Shaking hands, crossing each other. That's very uncommon in Germany, right? Can you think about why? Yes. Yeah. When four persons shaking hands, you usually don't shake hands across each other. That's actually holding true. Any explanation from anyone? From the Germans? Because you all tend to do the same, right? You don't shake hands crossing each other. But why? It's impolite. It's just impolite because you're violating the personal area of other persons, actually. That's all it is. There's no other specific reason given for the same. Interesting observation. But that's somewhat easy to get around with, right? So just you learn the fact and you follow the same. And that's what usually happens, right? You just learn something and you follow the same. But probably you don't even understand why, because you're not asking the right questions. You're not asking at all, probably, right? So how to deal with a cultural shock? And shock here is a very, very strong word, actually, but it just means that you're surprised by something happening you don't know yet. Actively participate in the foreign culture. Get to know everything, and most important, be aware of your own culture. Don't lose your own culture. You don't have to imitate anything, right? That's not how it's meant to be. That's just hiding in a different culture. But try to find out why. Ask people. And it's really interesting example because most Germans won't be able to explain why. Not at all. They all do, and no one knows why. And that's culture. And forcing them by asking why, it's also interesting for the other side. Right? Because then they have to think about it. So yeah, what? Yeah, damn, you're right. Why? I don't know. I learned the same from my parents, from my fellow students, from whomsoever actually. Without thinking, they just took over the same procedure, the same behavior. Right? Try to embrace the different perspectives. So why? If there is an explanation why, try to think why it holds true in this specific culture, for example. With respect to history and religion, different rules for eating. They actually stem from regional differences. If it's really warm the whole time through, you have to make sure that you mainly use food that's not really, violating you completely if you eat it a day too late, right? In the northern countries, you can just put your food outside and it will be good for infinity. Because they're essentially living in the refrigerator. So anyways, and reflect your own emotions. That's also a very important part. You may have problems with the behavior or whatsoever, but that most likely stems from your own culture. So is it really about your own ethic, for example? Then it's completely okay to just be not d'accord with the same. You can still accept it if you think about it. So reflect your own emotions. And there's a saying, I really like that, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. And that's really important. And that's a very subject-specific point of view. And there's no other possibility as well. I mean, it's not possible. Objectivity is not possible. In social studies, they speak about objectivity, what's it called? Not objectivity, but ist nicht objektiv, sondern man ist intersubjective. So you take also into account the point of view of others in combination with your own to enhance the point of view. But real objectivity is not given because you always have your own culture and your own thoughts and your own socialization in the back. So therefore that's really important. So now let's go for some specific areas, let's say some specific topics. University in Germany. Compared to several other countries, universities in Germany are mainly not private, leading also to the situation that you mainly don't have to pay high fees as well, right? And almost each and everyone who has the allowance to enter a study program is also allowed and able to enter a study program. No big selections, for example, specifically at the bachelor's level. No high fees. A big freedom of science and teaching. That's actually also university law in Germany. And that's unfortunately one of the big reasons why we almost can't interfere with what our professors are doing. It's their decision how they provide the lectures, in which language they provide the lecture, if they offer an elective in a specific semester, and we can ask them, and we can beg, and we can nag, but we can't force them to do anything, right? On the other hand, also holding true for the students. A lot of freedom of choice. And at least in most federal states, we do have a very strong participation of the students themselves. The Students' Council organizing orientation days, for example, organizing other events, helping other students. The AStA, for example, also really important and not existing in some federal states because Baden-Württemberg and Bayern. Some German federal states. Anyways, besides Bavaria. Bavaria is the northern part of Austria. No, okay. So then, okay, if there are so many differences, how to study in Germany? Well, you have to be autonomous. It's all up to you. I mean, we do offer help. There is consultation for courses, the student advisory, for example, and so on. But you have to decide on your own. You have to make your own selection, your own decisions over time. There is no all-round service existing usually because actually to be able to hire that many people, we would actually have to have high fees because we are funded by the state, by the federal state mainly, and they don't have much money. So that's probably the drawback of a public university, right? We have to stick with the money we get. You could solve a lot of things if you just throw money on it that we don't have. So we're trying to be creative in other ways. You have to be self-responsible. I usually tend to say for the bachelors in the mentoring system I'm heading, you need 3 meter competencies in order to graduate in our study programs. You have to be self-motivated, just to cope with the stress over time, self-organized, to cope with the amount of workload over time, and self-reflective enough in order to change something and see if something is not working out. And as long as you have these meter competences on a high enough level, you will definitely pass our degrees. Everything else is just spending time, right? But you have to make sure that you have these competencies. Otherwise, you will run into problems, either because you take too many credits or too few credits, or you start learning too late, or you're probably not changing anything if you run into issues, and then you will run into the same issues over time again and again and again. So, the meter competencies. But of course, at the beginning, use the consultation hours and other possibilities to gather information in order to get used to the system, right? We had this information earlier on, lectures, seminars, and labs, and so on. It's not about reproducing. That's probably something really important. There will be a lot of transfer tasks, for example. It's about research as well in a university. So you have to try to figure out how to use what's given onto new problems, for example, which is really interesting, but not as easy as just reproducing the same thing over and over again, right? Why implementing the wheel for 1,000th time? Not interesting. It's always fine to criticize. I mean, some people may probably have problems with the same, but in general, it's completely fine. If you think something is not working out at all, if you don't receive an answer from me, for example, in due time, criticize me. I'm completely fine with the same, right? And most lecturers and academic staff members are, as long as you can argue in a good way. I mean, constructive criticism, right? Not just nagging around. That's stupid. No copy and paste. That's actually not a good thing to do, but probably run into legal issues in Germany if you just copy paste things, right? Make sure citation rules and whatever are valid and you know about the same. A lot of things to take care of, a lot of differences. So how to approach people? Well, get in touch with the locals. That's essentially the best tip you can get. Get in touch with the locals. Where? When? Well, anytime you are able to, right? Talk to as many people as possible. Attend the library, Mensa, sports, in courses, online, whatsoever. There's a Discord server, Geek Hub, for example, and. A lot of possibilities. The sports facility. It's really easy to join people if you have the same interest. Might be sports, might be other hobbies, for example, right? You don't have to stick with the university. You can just search for other people around as well. Try to get in touch with the locals as soon as possible and as early as possible and as often as possible in order to figure out what's the difference here, how do they behave, and they can all be of help because they should know how it works out, roughly at least. All right, there are different ways of accommodation as well. In Germany, for example, shared flats are quite a thing, specifically for students, because we don't have that much dormitories, for example. And our university, for example, has no own dormitory at all. That's all organized by the Studierendenwerk, not the university itself. So we can't provide any dormitories or something like that. And it's really expensive in a lot of university cities in Germany. So therefore, it makes sense to just share a flat, for example. That's quite common. Studio apartments, private apartments. Private apartments are very rarely given within the students. Studio apartments sometimes, but also if they are available, for example, that's not always given. And you have to search for yourself. I mean, there are, of course, dormitories, Studentenwohnheime. The rooms are usually furnished. That's something different with if you go for real estate agent or the private market, most likely flats won't be furnished. In UK, for example, completely different. So if someone from UK drops by and searches for a flat and finds a flat and it's completely unfurnished, they're all astonished like hell. Whysoever. Because usually it's not the kind of furniture you want to have in your own flat. But hey. But the dormitory rooms are usually at least somewhat basically furnished, right? So not that much, but a chair, a table, a locker, something like that. But it differs. You have to look out for the same. And you have to rent that on your own. If you're not really sure about the legal base, there is the possibility to get legal advice. The AStA and Studierendenwerk are offering legal advice service for students. If you think that there might be something strange in your contract, let it get checked by a lawyer, or probably fellow students from Germany or whatsoever who are more fond of the legal aspects. Because it could be something over time, limited or unlimited contract. There may be an automatic renewal or withdrawal of the contract written down. Some things are legal, some are not. There may be something like an annual rent increase in your contract, and a lot of details you have to look out for. Try to cross-read, and really, I mean that. Compared to some things like AGBs, im Englischen, allgemeine Geschäftsbedingungen. Terms of conditions, thanks. I was missing a word. Read that. Contracts. Read contracts to the end. And try to understand what's written down. Please. Thanks. Right, then usually you have to pay some deposit, for example. You have to pay monthly. It's very rare that you have to pay yearly, actually. It's still existing, but very rare cases. What's included? Well, usually the rent is only the rent of the flat. And then there are usually some things like Nebenkosten. So additional things you have to pay for, like gas, electricity, probably stairwell cleaning, because we're so cleaned up in Germany. Trash collection, water, taxes, whatsoever. So actually, you have to not only check what's the basic rent, but what do I have to pay in general at the end, in total, right? Makes a lot of difference sometimes. And everything together, this is called cold rent, because you don't have electricity or heat or whatever, so it's actually cold. And including all these other costs, it's the so-called warm rental. Same in other countries? Well, essentially, right? So essentially, same, right? Okay, cool. So there are, of course, some more differences. For example, washing and drying the laundry is often only possible in the basement, not in your own flat, for example. That's usually stated also in the contracts. Sometimes it's somewhere located in your bathroom or something, but most likely it's somewhat in the basement. Bicycles, depends. Probably it's possible to park them in the basement, probably you have to park them, there's a specific garage outside for bikes, or a garage in general, or probably you just have to leave them outside. If you have a backyard in Darmstadt, put your bikes in the backyard. A lot of stolen bikes in Germany, and Darmstadt specifically, right? So specifically if your bike has some worth, try to put it in the back of your house. Pets, you need to ask the permission of your landlord whether you're allowed to have pets, actually. So just don't buy a dog or a cat or whatever without asking a landlord, because that might actually be a reason to actually, damn, I'm missing the words. I need more coffee. Yeah, throw you out of the flat, let's say. On the other hand, you're not responsible for repair work for several things on your own. So if there is a problem, I mean, if there's a problem with your gas line, probably leave the flat directly. And afterwards, call your landlord, right? So water, electrical lines, gas, and whatsoever, some major things in your flat, for example, and inform the landlord. He or she is responsible for the repair. It might take ages, and it will probably lead to a higher position here at some point, if they're not nice, but you have to inform them. Because you will probably run into issues, or actually legal issues, if you fix it on your own. For example, something happens later on. So it's all part of the landlord side. Balconies. Most Germans still do. But you will learn that there are specific people in Germany spread somewhat across the cities that tend to be not okay with what you do. Specifically if there's a bit of smoke on their balcony, or if it's a bit too loud 5 minutes after the right time, for example, because you're not allowed to be loud between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. usually, and 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Mondays till Saturdays, and the whole Sunday through, because the Sunday is holy. As you will most likely have encountered, oh, thanks, another coffee, dropping by. It's just a second. I have to finalize the first one. Perfect. I think you do have enough photos of me drinking coffee, right? Probably. Therefore, also, almost no shops opened on Sunday. If you want to buy groceries on Sunday, good luck. There's a supermarket at the train station that is opened on Sundays, and that's one of the probably most heard jokes in Darmstadt as well. There's a Facebook group, the city of Darmstadt, with all the citizens, and almost every time if something happens, at some point you will find the information. But the Rewe at the train station has opened on Sundays, and I think I hear a helicopter. I don't get the jokes anyways. Fair enough. So make sure to look up all the detailed rules and the common rules and prepare for the same. public holidays, Sundays, if you need something, right, make sure to do that before everything's closed. Also in the evenings, 24/7 is not something that happens a lot in Germany. Not at all. Just an example. There is a 24/7 hotline if you urgently need a medical doctor. At the moment, they're available on work days between 8 and 4 p.m. The 24/7 hotline. Fair enough. My girlfriend had to make a doctor appointment a few days ago. Due to too few people working here, we can only offer our 24/7 hotline and so on. So try to get around with this. And here we are, disposal. That is something you have to get used to. Ah. Yes. Yeah. Okay, thanks. I'm going to repeat that for the camera. So that was a hint. Sometimes landlords are taking up things in the contract you actually shouldn't pay for. If you're in doubt or if you know that it's wrong, and they will probably tend to do that more if they get to know that you're a foreign student, because they think that it can easily be tricked. It's all about capitalism and earning money. So therefore, get that cross-checked by a lawyer, or for example, Mieterschutzbund. That's a facility that's meant to ask those questions to if you're not really sure. And it is possible to get free appointments, I think, but it might take a bit actually to get an appointment. Or probably you have to pay a small fee or something. I'm not really sure. All right, back to the garbage disposal. Thanks. Well, the garbage is mainly fetched at home, but not everything, of course. There are different, and it differs. Actually, it doesn't only differ in the amount of different disposal sections, whatever, but also whether this is really the right color. So in other cities or other federal states, you may encounter different colors for different types of garbage disposal. Yeah, Frankfurt, for example. Here, specific metals and plastics. Not all of them. Yellow bin or yellow sack from time to time. Mühltal, I think, still have these plastic bags. Paper, blue, and actually in Darmstadt, green. Organic disposal, not green in Darmstadt, but brown. Fair enough, yeah, it might be. It changes over time sometimes, actually. So everything else, gray or orange, at least in Heiligen, where I live at the moment. And then you do have furniture or something probably to dispose. Then you can actually call in most cities, especially in Darmstadt, you can actually either online or via telephone, you can book an appointment. Then you're allowed to put that on the street at earliest 6 p.m. in the evening before, and it's fetched quite early in the morning usually. So it's usually not a good idea to try to provide that or put it on the street in the mornings, because then it will be most likely before 7 a.m. and you are not allowed to be loud. So, therefore, a lot of possibilities. And besides that, of course, in your neighborhood you can find glass containers. Green, brown, and white. Where to put blue glass in? For the Germans. Brown, green. So now we have 3 different answers. I don't know. I'm randomly putting it in some of the... champagne, for example. No, some bottles are actually blue. Most likely alcohol, but water bottles from time to time, for example, as well. Slightly blue, dark blue, whatever. But there's no possibility to figure out if you're in front of the glass containers where to put blue in, because it's just not given. It probably doesn't exist. Okay, thanks. Someone looked it up. It's actually the green glass then. All right, clothes, shoes, containers. Thanks a lot. And a lot of things. As I just stated earlier, in Japan, it's actually divided into, I think, at least 10 different types of plastics. What they do, almost each and every evening, a small stack of garbage in front of their houses. And those are fetched in the morning as well, or throughout the day. But very small portions, because they divide that into way more sections, actually, than we do. On the other hand, in Darmstadt, most of your garbage will be burned anyways to create electricity. So, fair enough. Why sorting it out if it all gets burned afterwards? So, a lot of things. If you throw your garbage in the wrong bin and you get caught, it's really expensive. Really expensive. And you're responsible. And if you have a common garbage bin, for example, for the whole house, everyone has to pay, essentially. And it can lead to several thousand euros of fee, actually. So probably don't. Try to figure out where to put it in. If you're not sure, use the everything else bin, because you're essentially allowed to throw away almost everything in that. No electricity or what's right. I mean, probably no television or whatever. That's specific disposal. Then there are some facilities where you can actually provide garbage to, specific ones. Renovating your flat, for example. The colors, pencils, whatever, all these things have to be disposed at a specific site, not at home. And so on and so forth. So you can probably spend a lot of time just cross-reading all the information on garbage disposal in Germany. Because you don't have anything else to do, right? But on the other hand, you can easily make fun out of the Germans with the garbage disposal at home. So, fair enough. Health insurance. Oh, fund. Oh, fund. Okay. Right. At some point you would see for, oh sorry, I left my area. This sign here is really important, specifically for bottles and cans. If you encounter this, you can throw it away, but then you will lose money, because you pay actually 25 cents for this sign at least, and for the beer bottles it's, I don't know, 6 cents or something. Depends. Mehrweg. If you encounter the word Mehrweg, look it up. And then there are usually in the supermarkets, for example, there are automats or people where you can actually give back the bottles and you will get back the money. So usually a small recipe where you can go to the cashier then and fetch your money, for example, or just use it for your next shopping. Right. That's one of the signs. There are other possibilities, for example, for some different stuffs, but that's very rarely given actually. So most likely it's for bottles and cans. Health insurance. And again, a warm greeting to the colleagues from the US. Health insurance is mandatory in Germany. And it's really important. And it's a really nice thing to have, because you won't have to pay the high fees in hospital or for your medical doctor or whatsoever on your own. Sometimes you have to pay a bit in addition, but most of the costs are actually covered by your health insurance. You have to pay the health insurance though. Some kind of social thing, right? As long as you're fine, you're paying for the others, but if you get ill, you're really happy that you do have a health insurance. It's usually covering hospital care, the registered doctor's care. That's a really important thing, because you don't have to be registered for the health insurance, the official one in Germany. And then if you make an appointment with this doctor, you still have to pay on your own. So make sure that you go to a registered doctor's care if you're insured. Basic dental care is included as well. It's mandatory for students. If you're somewhat 30 years old or older, or under some circumstances, you may have to have your own health insurance. Sometimes you're insured by your family, specifically for the Germans, and. So there are a lot of things given. And sometimes it's possible to get health insurance coverage from your home country if you have a health insurance there. But for example, it has to cover a specific amount of money in case something happens. Otherwise, it's not accepted as equivalent in Germany. I'm not sure if it's still Miss Memminger, but there's one colleague from, I think, the TK Health Insurance Agency, and they are checking the health insurances from other countries, whether they are valid in Germany as well. So if someone is uncertain here, cross-check that. Usually you have to go see your general practitioner, medical doctor, first of all. In German it's called Hausarzt. Explanation, Germans? Hausarzt. Why Hausarzt? Yeah, exactly. That's because they tended to go to your house. That's almost not possible anymore, to be honest, but it still happens, and therefore the name of Hausarzt, not relating to having their own house. That's most likely true for all medical doctors as well. But you need, if you want to see a specialist, you most likely have to visit your general practitioner first in order to get this transfer certificate to the specific doctor. It's running around a lot, to be honest. So make sure that you have spare time for the same. Don't forget your health insurance card. Krankenversicherungskarte. One of the most important words in Germany. Krankenversicherungskarte. If you ever play hangman in your further life, use German words. After my talk, I can probably show the longest German word existing officially in the dictionary. That's, as most of these words, it's actually a specific law. Es ist das Rinderfleisch-Übertragungsetikettengesetz, Dingsgedöns, irgendwas, keine Ahnung mit. Hospital treatment, of course, if it's an emergency, right? There should be something like an ER in the hospital. You probably have to wait there. You can also go to the hospital if you have a recommendation from one of your specialist doctors or your Hausarzt. In case of emergency, that's probably the most important numbers. There are several other numbers for different cases as well. For example, poison, right? Like, if you whatsoever in autumn just randomly go in the forest and get some mushrooms and just eat them without knowing what you're actually doing. And yes, people tend to do. There's a specific phone number for mushroom poisoning. But also, if just poisoning, fire, police, whatever. So these two numbers are the most generic ones. And you will reach usually either police or fire station or some central facility, and they will check upon you what's actually happening and then either redirect you or directly send an ambulance or whatever, right? But there are several other numbers. Look them up. Probably provide them in your pocket, in your, I don't know where, besides your telephone at home, whatsoever. And remember these two numbers by heart. Any addition from the Germans? Really important. Yes, true. If in doubt, call them. And if there's an emergency. Because it's really expensive to call them without an emergency. as good as the average German speaks English. Let's be honest, as long as you can provide your address, they will most likely send an ambulance or police car anyways. And yeah, differs. Exactly, sometimes you get redirected to someone else. But it should be somewhat okay-ish, right? At latest in the hospital, a lot of doctors in Germany are not Germans. At latest in the hospital, you will most likely find a doctor who's able to speak profound English. Or any other country, probably, as well. Yeah, thanks. Some note from behind for the pharmacies. Even if they're closed, like we learned, right? So they're not opened in the night or on Sunday or whatever. But there should at least be one pharmacy for emergencies you can reach out for. But probably you have to send someone else if you're probably not able to walk or drive by yourself and so on, because it might be located somewhere around you, right? But it's always a good idea to be prepared. So therefore, just cross-check the numbers and probably where to go to specific pharmacies during the regular closing hours. Right. Okay, vaccinations. So first of all, if you don't want to, you don't have to. We're not forcing you to get vaccinated. Yet, mosquitoes, I'm not really sure, but ticks are a thing here. And they do actually Enzephalitis and FSME, das ist die Enzephalitis und was ist das andere? Borreliose. So two different, really hazardous illnesses you can get from ticks. Specifically if you run around in higher grass outside in the summer. So ticks are usually not in the trees, but on higher grass usually, so a height of I think 60 centimeters or something to 1 meter topmost. But if you're shorts or something like that and you're running around in the countryside, it really makes sense to get vaccinated against one of the possibilities you can get, ticks. If you're allowed to bring your own medicine. Depends. I mean, depends whether it's legal in Germany, maybe. I probably wouldn't try to bring in the country too many illegal drugs in general. But some are allowed, definitely. Quite common. Some are not. You have to read up the information and the Zoll, the border control police unit. Yes, you need to provide the proof that you're actually, yeah, it depends on the medicine. Some medicine is actually, you don't need a receipt in Germany at all. You can just buy them at the pharmacy. In that case, of course, it's completely fine, like ibuprofen or paracetamol or something, like headache medicine, for example. That's completely fine usually. But if you need a prescription, then you have to prove that you got that prescribed by your home doctor, definitely. And because otherwise, it's most likely some more hazardous drug then, right? But it differs completely, so therefore look it up, look up the specific medicine and the rules, and you will find that most likely on the information page of the airports, for example, something like that. There's a question from behind. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. So that's the emergency medical doctor hotline I mentioned earlier, the 24/7. That's only available on work days between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. at the moment. It's 116 117. Okay, I have been in the hospital lately quite a few times due to personal reasons, not mine. They are available way more often than you just stated, Ärztlicher Bereitschaftsdienst. I personally would recommend to search your own medical doctor definitely as well, because a lot of different doctors are working there. Not all of them are yes or even polite or whatever. So just an example, what we encountered a few years ago, a fellow student dropped by there, had some really hurting abdomen, and got asked by the doctor working there, so shouldn't be a problem, right? Just go home. The next day he got the surgery. So, emergent surgery. So therefore, probably make sure that you cross-check what they keep telling you there, and therefore always have your own medical doctor at hand as well, right? Just to have a second opinion, probably. But if, of course, you don't have your own doctor so far, or if you can't make it till there, or whatsoever, the hospital is always a place, or the Ärztlicher Bereitschaftsdienst rather than a hospital actually, is the place to be. Right. Run around, search, and ask whether they still accept patients. Because most of them are actually already stuck with the maximum amount, and then you can actually use these numbers, for example, if you need someone quickly. Otherwise, you just have to search actually and call them and ask them whether they still accept some new patients and whatever. It would be the best if they are doctors of your district, but it can't be guaranteed that you will find someone in the nearest area around, unfortunately. And there's no right to have your own house arzt in your own area. So I know people who actually drive like half an hour into a different city or village around in order to get fast help, actually. A lot of doctors in the inner city of Darmstadt are booked out solid. Like mine is, for example, and I tried to get an appointment after almost 10 years, and they didn't know me because they changed the whole IT system. And it was like, no, we're not accepting anyone new. I'm not new, but we don't have any proof. And it was like 10 to 15-minute discussion on the phone till they accepted me again, right? Because that's, I can explain that probably on individual base later on, but it's, let's say, in my personal point of view, health, public transport, and some other things shouldn't be coming down to earning money. Privatization. And they're reducing, for example, the time you have as a medical doctor for each patient. 10 minutes. They get paid 10 minutes per appointment. So high, done. Right? So they really have to stick with the situation and get around with the situation as well. Not really their fault, but they can't accept too many people. And then you have to extend your search till you find someone. And then you can probably change later on to a nearer doctor if they still have capacities left on, right? Or again. But first of all, try to figure out the nearest ones, extend your search, and probably search later on if you can find someone nearer to you. Right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, good recommendation. At least get in touch at latest every second year. They are changing their systems quite often. They're removing data and whatever. Therefore, make sure that they know you over time. Otherwise, you have to discuss a lot of things like me. It worked out, but it's probably not as easy if you're not a native speaker, for example, in German. So therefore, it's a really good recommendation. Thanks. Yeah, right. Via health insurance, for example, sometimes the city council has some information about the same. There are apps, Dr. Irgendwas Lib, and something like that. But for example, neurologists are not taking part in HESIA in this app. So it differs on the type of doctor as well, and the federal state sometimes, but just use everything you can, right, in order to figure out whom to get in touch with. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes, I totally agree. It's somewhat messed up, the system. We are playing the system since a few years now, my girlfriend and me. Are a bit frustrated, to be honest. Anyways, right, you need to attend this one first to get a recommendation for a specialist doctor, for example, and just stick with the same example. If you need a neurochirurg, actually, at the end, you need to first of all go to your general practitioner, get a recommendation for the specialist doctor, and get a recommendation from him or her then in order to get to the hospital. Totally easy to get around the system. And they all have free appointments and whatsoever, so make sure that you have your medical doctors, the most important, ready and steady in case there is some emergency. That's a good recommendation. Yes. Yeah, right. I totally agree. Try to call them, right? Try to make sure that it's really an emergency, for example. And what might be a good recommendation, drop by in person, if applicable. It's way harder to say no face to face. That's just the case. So sometimes if you drop by in person, they will accept you, but if you call, they will deny you, right? So. Yeah. Really early sometimes, right? And bring your time. Open consultation hours, just bring your time. If they tell you, yeah, you can drop by, but it might take some time, probably buy a book. Because it might actually take some time, right? They do have some newspapers and whatever. I usually take my own book. Yes. Yes, yes. Yeah. My girlfriend had a sepsis 1.5 years ago in the kidney, and she was lying around in the ER for 4 hours with heavy pain. So it really differs, and it's something that is, yeah. Yeah, but no sonography, no CT, no whatever, so they didn't know, and they just assumed that it's probably not that big of a problem. And as soon as they actually checked the same, an hour later, she got the surgery. So probably just nag them if you're really in a hurry. Anyways, let's switch to the next topic. Mobile contracts. There are two different variations. You pay as you go, prepaid. Right? Then you can steer that in a good way. On the other hand, if you run out of money, you just can be called. You're not able to call again or whatever. And then contracts. Standard, at least was for some time. It differs a bit, 2 years. Sometimes you encounter something like it's free at first, then it's usually going to be more expensive later on compared to other contracts. Because it's also a capitalism system, so therefore they all want to have your money, and there's no reason why they should actually don't get most out of you, right? So therefore, monthly fees, yearly fees, whatsoever, make sure that you read the contract details as good as possible and understand everything before you actually sign a contract for your mobile contract. Otherwise, you may, for example, be bound to the contract for 2 years and you have to pay very high fees. Not the best situation. As a customer, right? Yeah, right. Thanks. Right. If you most international students are most likely not that long in Germany, but yeah, sure. So from time to time they're calling. At some point they actually stop calling. I have a very old mobile contract, very old. And they had to switch me to some newer contract at some point because their systems were so completely changed that was, and now I have some very specific interim situation in my contract actually. And every time they come, it's just like, if you can't make the same offer, I'm not going to switch. And I'm paying probably a third of what's the cheapest contract now. And I'm always, nah, I'll stay. I don't need mobile, internet or whatever because I'm old and I still have my computer, whatsoever. And they're really frustrated by now. Really frustrated with me by now. So I think that at some point they will just cancel my contract. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Is there free internet at the university? Yes, there is, and there is a talk about the same after lunch break. All right, public transportation. Ooh, we're always on time in Germany. The most punctual train system in the world. It probably has been. I don't know. I was probably not born then. Actually, if they're delayed more than 5 minutes, it's a thing now to just drop the train because then they don't have to pay back the fees. Right. Cancelled trains are not counting towards the punctuality statistics. Trams or trains? Trains, so main station. Trains from where? Because they're running each and every half an hour, so it's actually the train that's as it's the local, it's the regional train, right? Okay, at the moment they do have, okay, at the moment. Since a few years, they're working, first of all, they're working on some routes. A lot of problems, even if there's just one train a bit delayed, the whole schedule is not working out anymore due to this construction works and the limited amount of rails. Secondly, at the moment, as goes for RMV, as goes for the German Train Association, a lot of illnesses at the moment, so few people. And then you have the commuting hours as well. And specifically the Rhine-Main area, a lot of commutes to Frankfurt and back from Frankfurt, a lot. So specifically in the commuting phase, under these situations, it's just a random thing to happen. Pardon once again? No, nothing. That's just probably either there are apps not really reliable the whole time through, but a bit more probably than what you can see in the train station itself. There are a lot of possibilities to get from Frankfurt to Darmstadt and back. Just go to the train station and hop into the first train approaching. It's additionally a specific situation. It was always not the best situation, but it got worse since 2 to 3 years or something. There is no mandatory presence in our course. The question is whether the professors get harsh. If you have a fixed appointment, then you have to make sure that you're in time. And for example, in exams or for exams, if there's a strike occurring or something, you should probably drop by in Darmstadt the day early and sleep over with fellow students or in a hotel or whatever, because it's your responsibility to be there in time, right? Doesn't matter whether the train was not running. For lectures or whatsoever, I mean, of course, differs with the number of participants if they even get to know that you're dropping by late. On the other hand, no mandatory presence or whatsoever, so it's actually just getting all the information you missed. But then you can just access, for example, in the door above here in the small lecture halls, and just take your seat. And that happens from time to time, so that's not an issue at all. Right. So you do have the semester ticket. There's the 49 euro ticket in Germany. I'm not really sure about the fees. There is something you probably will get to know from the AStA. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Too long and too complicated to summarize it again in English for all people. There is a possibility to, and there is information about the same, look that up. It's possible to combine your semester ticket with the 49 euro tickets and get back some of the fees. It is already combined. Okay, wait, you paid for the semester ticket and this is actually valid as the 49 euro ticket. Okay, perfect. Then you need to do some technical stuff and whatever, and then you can at least ride all the regional trains in Germany. Yeah. Ah. Tobias is going to talk about that tomorrow. Perfect. All right, make sure that you look at which ticket you're buying, depending on what you're actually doing. There are day tickets, weekly tickets, group tickets, single tickets, tickets for specific trains, and whatsoever. Before you pay your money, make sure that you fetch the right ticket, right? So, all these automats are totally easy to use. So just click around a bit, buy a random ticket, and hope that it was a real one. No, make sure that you really buy the right ticket, right? Going out. Germans are allowed to drink alcohol when they reach their 16th year. With 16, you're allowed to drink beer and wine. You're usually also allowed to go out till at least midnight, depending, of course, if it's a pub or club or whatever. And of course, on the club or pub, whether they allow non-adults to join. And there are several possibilities, well-known, bars, pubs, nightclubs, cinemas, but different ages and different types of people compared to other countries. For example, in the US, you're only allowed to enter most of the locations with 21, as well goes for drinking alcohol. So you have way older people in the pubs, for example, specifically in the early evening and night. In Germany, there may be people sitting around with 16 years or even younger, for example. So that's one of the differences. A lot of possibilities, a good possibility to get in touch with locals or other people in general. Probably not cinema. It's probably disturbing the others a bit. As goes for theater. But parties, there's a party on website where you can look up a lot of possibilities. Also Discord servers and whatever, Facebook groups, and organize yourself, have a look, just go out, have fun. Darmstadt is a really good place to be if you want to do that. Several possibilities. You're located in the Rhine-Main area, so it's easy to get to Wiesbaden, Mainz, Frankfurt, Offenbach, but also Mannheim, Ludwigshafen, or Heidelberg, for example. And if you have a car, it's a 1-hour drive to Karlsruhe, so therefore also manageable. A lot of things where you can actually go out if you want to. Concerts, a lot of concerts in any music direction available. If you're really into punk and metal as me, best area in Germany. All right, and now to some stereotypes. Germans are direct, straight shooters, no diplomatic discussions at all. Germans tend to be very goal-oriented in their interaction. How are you? Oh, thanks for asking. Lately I had some trouble, blah, 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 blah. Do you think it's true? The international students, have you encountered something like that already? Germans always direct, always goal, solution-oriented. I see some nodding there. For the Germans, do you think it's true? Depends. On what? Yes. Personally, I'd say it is somewhat true, but I agree it differs. Germans usually don't tend to talk too much about their personal stuff with foreigners. Yet they are quite outgoing from time to time as well, and specifically there's not much politeness included at first glance. But that's probably also due to the case that it's polite in German to be honest. So if you get asked, a lot of Germans will really answer honestly, even though it may hurt your feelings, because you have asked. And it's polite to be honest. And those are two types of politeness that are colliding here, right? I could be polite without harming you, or I am polite being honest with you. And it really differs on the topics and the situation, but in general I'd say yes, quite direct. On the other hand, it also depends on the location or the setting. For example, in industry or in company related things, there is way more politeness because there are other socializations happening and social structures given, right? In general. And then it's also somewhat about education, socialization, family, and, right? But in general, I'd say compared to several other countries, probably a bit more harsh and direct. A bit, but not really. Just binary, yes. What about that? Do the Germans think this is true? There's a lot of nodding in the room now. And also the international students tend to think that it's true. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. No discussion about that. Specifically structure and organization. Rules, yeah, depends, of course. I mean, our country or the social ethic in our country only constitutes by law. We don't have any discussion about ethics in Germany in the common sense or something. Do's and don'ts, whatever. There's just no common discussion about whole Germany. So the German society consists of German law, actually. So the basic law, then the federal laws and so on. And these are rules. And they structure your whole day life. So essentially the whole society is built up on rules, right? Yes, and do we love them? Yes and no, I'd say. In general, it makes life easier. If you just have to follow the rules, make it definitely way easier. You don't have to think by yourself. On the other hand, there are several rules we do have in Germany that are completely ignored in general, right? So it really differs, but in general, again, yes, Germans are really fond of rules. And I again think that the Japanese are even... Now, I don't like the word worse here. I'd say even more loving rules and organization and structure. Besides, I've not seen any country in the world probably with the same love for rules and structure and whatever. Similar, yes. More than us, yeah. And some really interesting things you can observe probably. For example, that one. It, of course, differs between countryside, age of the people you encounter and whatever. But you will see that quite often in Germany, no car, nowhere, red pedestrian light, and still the people are standing there waiting. It gets green and they're walking, even though nothing changed at all besides this color of the light. If you get caught crossing a red pedestrian light, it's actually also quite expensive, depending on the city. You have to run, I think, 200 meters. Yeah, I think it's 200 meters or something, away from the pedestrian sign, actually. Then you can cross the street at any time, if there's no car. So there is actually a range defined. But if there's a red light, probably stay. Or I'll run across the street and see what happens in the faces of the Germans. That's also interesting. And again, mid of night, mid of Tokyo, no car, and all the Japanese people are waiting patiently. Red. We Germans, no difference. We felt as home. Yeah? Fair enough. as I also already said, right, the garbage cans. And that's a very specific German thing, Ordnungsamt. That literally translates to Office of Orders. And they are the ones checking whether you follow the rules in your city or in your village or whatever, right? Ordnungsamt. I don't think that there's anything identical or even similar in other countries, probably. Yes, but it isn't. It's a different section, actually. They don't have the same rights as the police or law enforcement. Law enforcement, we don't have the same law enforcement system as, for example, UK. But we do have law enforcement system, but that's really done by the police. The Ordnungsamt, they, for example, don't have any weapons or whatever. They're not allowed to wear weapons. They're not allowed to do the same things as a police officer is allowed to do, for example. They have different areas to work on. They are essentially only responsible for checking whether you have parked correctly, whether your garbage disposal is fine, whether you don't throw away cigarettes, or whatsoever. So all those not illegal things, but things that are forbidden where you just have to pay a fee. And this is this specific section. And they are hired by the cities, not the federal police, for example, something. They're working for the cities, right? Ordnungsamt. Perfect. They are also, for example, not allowed to stop you if you're in the running traffic. So if you stop, they are allowed to provide a fee, but they're not allowed to stop you. When I was quite young, with the first motorized bikes I had, like Mokik, Mofa, 50 cubic centimeters, 80 cubic centimeters, 120 cubic centimeters, and so on. I come from the area around countryside. It's really boring, and you tend to probably speed up your bike a bit, illegally. If one of them actually tried to stop you, just keep going. Nothing could happen. If you do the same with the police, you will be stopped at some point, and then it's really getting expensive. So that's a very specific type of law enforcement unit, let's say, right? They look similar to the policemen's. They do have some uniforms as well. And Ordnungsamt is somewhere, or city police or something like that is written down on their uniform. No. So you will you should be able to identify them just by the look, actually. They do have tasers from time to time now, and so on. And not every police officer is carrying a weapon in Germany, right? Because weapons are usually not allowed in Germany. Welcome, colleagues from the US. We astonishingly have very few shootings in Germany because no one has a gun. Astonishing. But yeah, not every police officer is carrying a gun directly, for example. So, but you should identify. If you're in doubt and you think it's one of the ordnance, just behave correctly. My recommendation. Germans are punctual, and I have to hurry a bit, unfortunately. Germans are punctual. What do you think? No. Relative to Canada. Okay, interesting. Appointments with your friends, for example. In Canada, they are not as punctual, okay? Okay, interesting. The system doesn't allow to be punctual. Yeah, true. Specifically if you try to commute with public transportation nowadays. Fair enough. Yeah, for example, thanks. I'd agree. Most people are somewhat punctual, but it differs depending on the type of appointment, for example. Fair enough. Right. It really differs. I agree. It really differs. I'm usually quite on time. I hate it being late, really. But I think it's more personal socialization rather than a common thing. But if you have an appointment, for example, with an official bureaucratic unit, Ausländerbehörde, for example, or your medical doctor, or whatever, so some more formal appointment, they don't only expect you to be on time. If you're probably just 5 minutes late, you will lose your appointment. And it might take ages to get another one. So therefore, with all the official appointments, be on time. For everything else, it depends on the bilateral agreements. Ihr wollt, ne? Okay, fair enough. Last semester, I actually stated that compared to the German public transportation, it's really working out in a good way, for example, in Switzerland. I once dropped out in the mid of a forest, somewhere in the mountains. There's the so-called Postbuses, the official bus lines in Switzerland on the countryside. And there was a small sign in the middle of nowhere. We looked it up. Okay, in 7 minutes, there should a bus pop up, actually. Okay, let's wait and see. Exactly after 7 minutes. And it was completely on time, the whole time through. Completely on time. People getting in, getting out, and whatsoever. In Germany, just for example, the train association assumes that every change of people commuting with the train takes 5 minutes topmost. Regardless of how many people want to get in or out of the train or how big the train station is or whatsoever, it's randomly 5 minutes. If you ever been at the main train station in Frankfurt and have a look how long it takes for all people getting out of a train and getting in of a train, you can see why all the trains are running late. It's just a stupid calculation they have, right? I told that. And then a Swiss student was actually here, or in the lecture hall above, and he was like, nah, not that punctual anymore in Switzerland as well, but German trains are forbidden in Switzerland from time to time because they are causing unpunctuality. I was laughing my ass off. I mean, that's, come on. Yeah, so, no, yeah, okay, but no German trains, please. We were actually well known worldwide for our punctuality in the train station. And now German trains are not allowed in Switzerland anymore because they're so unpunctual. Let's flip through the last few slides. Irgendwie I would skip the quiz. You can do this quiz later on anyways. Well, in short, yes. That's a stereotype I want to answer on my own. Definitely. We are so insured in Germany. You can get an insurance for almost everything you want, right? Personal liability insurance, household, legal insurance, life insurance, travel insurance, pet insurance, car insurance, bicycle insurance, unemployment insurance, name it, we have an insurance for it. Really, for almost everything. Yes. Was? Nö, ist nicht verpflichtend. Nein. Es ist nur, okay. Haftpflichtversicherung, it seems to be mandatory, it isn't, but there is no way around. You should definitely have one, because if something happens and you're not insured with the Haftpflichtversicherung, with your rented flat or room, with anything from someone else you're probably breaking or whatsoever, you have to pay for yourself. and that's quite costly sometimes, plus probably all the lawyer expenses and. Haftpflichtversicherung is probably the most, besides the health insurance, the most important thing you definitely should have. Probably don't go for a pet insurance if you don't have a pet. Yeah. Thanks. Very good hint. So even if you're not the one who has fault, the opposite insurance agency might actually use every argument if you're not insured and your own insurance agency is working against them, to actually either putting all the fault onto your side or at least splitting up the fault, for example, so you still have to pay some amount. So insurance agencies are helpful, but make sure that you really are, or that you really can use them. Like no bicycle insurance. No pet insurance, right? If you don't want to retire in Germany, probably don't agree upon a private retirement insurance or something. But if you want to get insured for anything, you will find an insurance, right? So that's a stereotype that's definitely true. What do you think? Germans love to drink beer. Actually, apple wine is different to cider, which most international people tend to not know. And they think it's cider, and then they have apple wine, causing different results. What do you think? Germans nowadays love to drink beer, yeah? It's actually decreasing a lot. It's actually decreasing a lot. The most often drink, or what Germans tend to drink most, water and coffee. Not beer. Even though we have still a lot of breweries, most of them are bought by big brewery systems now, more than 5,000 different brands of beer, and. We exported beer to several countries. Tsinghua, for example, was German founded. The most popular, the most well-known beer in China. So we exported beer brewing a lot. We were not the first. I mean, the first drinking song was written in the old Babylon on a I don't know how to translate that. And there's also a prayer for the goddess of beer, 4,500 years old. So we were definitely not the first ones. Germans tend to drink a lot of beer, but it's really decreasing. And I think nowadays it's probably not the most favored drink anymore at all, because there are so many alternatives like wine, Apfelwein, for example, in this area. If you have not tasted it by now, Apfelwein, Kochkäseschnitzel. Just look it up. In combination. Ooh, La Tange. Very nice. All right. We will skip the quiz because they want to tell you something and you should have some time for lunch. I'm more than happy if I'm going to create a new intercultural talk for the next orientation week, next semester. If you want to have something on the slides because you encountered something, a stereotype, you think it's true or not true or whatsoever, just let me know by email. I'm more than happy to take into account the intercultural differences you communicate into my direction, okay? Thanks a lot. Have a nice day. Get to know each other, right? See ya. Bye.
Tim, will you have read the email by then? Will you have read the email by winter semester? If they send you some inspiration. Maybe, maybe not. How long is the inbox currently? Ah, that's fine. Okay, we will have a short look at the timetable for today, because this is probably the last time we will have time for this today. Upcoming is the lunch. You can go again to the Mensa, cafeteria, whatever you want. We will go with you if you want. If not, then not. And afterwards, we will have the IT infrastructure talk held by Joachim again about the infrastructure provided by the ISP and HRZ. And afterwards, the bachelors will go together with Guido to another room, and we will go to another place, the Urturmhörsaal, in another building, because it is larger than this one. This talk might not directly apply to you, because you might not study IT security currently. And if you do not want to attend, that is probably also fine. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, the question online was whether it's causing any issues, any problems if you drop by belated in the semester because you ran into visa issues, for example, or something else happened. Not really. It differs depending on the time you're able to drop by and whether you select courses you can follow online, remote so far. You can still drop in and also follow the courses, probably reduce the amount because it's not so easy to organize it. But even though you may not be able to complete any course, that doesn't cause any issues, at least not directly. As I stated yesterday, the only rule we have is the Hessian University law and the imposed conditions. If you have to drop by belated because of visa issues, deadline for the imposed conditions, the remedial coursework will be extended. You just have to get in touch with me then. And besides that, you only have to pass one achievement every second year. So therefore, you can just start in the summer term then, correctly. The winter term, sorry. Not much difference in the master programs when to start. The only thing that might come or might be of interest, the duration of stay if you have a student visa. This is of course limited. It can be extended or will most likely be extended at some point. But one semester shouldn't cause any problems with that as well. But then, of course, you have to make sure that you don't have too many free semesters afterwards as well, right? Besides that, it's completely up to you whether you follow courses remotely and try to take the exams at the end or not. I usually recommend to wait till mid of the semester to finally decide whether you want to have a free semester or follow at least some of the courses. If there are any questions, get in touch with me via email. Probably. And you will most likely get an answer at some point.
Okay. Back to the timetable. At 4 p.m. we will also have the Uni Rally, which is probably interesting to all of you. You might get to know some new places in the university, get to visit probably the most common buildings that we have here, and also learn or meet two of our student groups that we have here. We will meet in this room again, C120, not C110, and it will of course not be streamed because it's an activity outdoors later. The special building for the closing master programs is located here. If you can see the picture, I can zoom in probably. We are currently now here, and you will need to go there, but we will do that together with you. Just if you get lost, then you have at least an idea where to go, and if everything fails, then just call the help desk on the back of your name tag. Okay. Okay. Thanks again, Tim, and we will see you later.